Hello, everybody. This is Constance from Mysterious Galaxy. I am very excited because we have authors well known at Mysterious Galaxy tonight, and we are here to celebrate Matt Coyle's Blind Vigil. Yay! Virtual round of applause. And it is book number 7 in the Rick Cahill series. So, yes, that is awesome. And joining him in conversation is going to be Lynn Fayman, who is the author of the Rolly Waters Mystery series. Now, before I hand it over to Corey, I just have a couple housekeeping rules. The Vanna White section, as I like to refer to it for everyone. So to our right-hand side is the general comment section. Shout out to Lori for giving our first comment for the event. And if you have any questions, make sure you ask questions. Questions are the most fun part of an event because you have the authors at your mercy. And if you have any questions, make sure you ask. If you look right down below, you'll see where it says ask a question. If you click that, then you can submit your questions. And then the last little note is that because Matt is a local author, we get to offer you guys actually signed and personalized books, which is a very hard thing to come by in current times.
Oh, really?
So we're very happy to be able to offer those. So if you would like to purchase a signed and personalized book, you can click the Buy Signed Book button down below and support a local author. And I'll also put Lynn's book here. So I am going to go ahead and pass it off to Corey. Corey or Corey Lynn, which do you prefer?
In conversation, Corey is good.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Corey, and I will see you guys at the end of the event. Have an amazing event.
Thanks, Constance.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I was going to say nice to see you, but I don't see most of you. I can see Matt. Hi, Matt.
Hello.
Thanks for coming. Looks like we got a nice little crowd here, and we've got Matt here, who's become a good friend of mine, a fellow San Diego author, and we've been writing about the same amount of time. Matt's got 7 books. I've only got 4, so he's kicking my ass in that department. Then the 7th book here.
Somebody's ass.
What's that?
Nice to be kicking somebody's ass.
Yeah, somebody's. Well, here is the new book, of course, Blind Vigil. This is the 7th book in the Rick Cahill series. Is it Cahill or Cahill? I heard
Cahill.
say Cahill.
Okay. It's called many things. It's Cahill.
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna go Cahill. And the 7th book in the series. When did it come out? Pretty recently.
December 1st, actually. Yeah.
Okay. So it's quite a new book, and still out there and ready to go. So let me get into a few things. I'm going to assume we've got people here. Most people here have read at least one of these books or knows Matt. I think I've read all of your books now, pretty sure. And this one was really interesting to me because it's a little different, and it's kind of the last 6 all had these kind of narrative arcs that were a part of a bigger kind of story. And I have to admit, the last time when I finished the last one, I went, okay, what's he gonna do now? and this was quite a surprise, but a really interesting thought. So my first question is, did you know where you were going with this when you ended the last one, or when did you kind of get the idea for doing this?
No, excuse me. I didn't. I mean, it's called Blind Vigil, so you kind of have an idea of what's going on with Rick. But when I wrote the ending to Lost Tomorrows, I thought, well, this is a really good ending. I'm really happy about this ending. This is a bang-up ending. And then set the book off, and then it was time to start another book. Wait a sec. I just put Rick in a very difficult physical situation. So, well, he has from the medical things I've learned and what I put in Lost Tomorrows and also in the beginning of Blind Vigil. Oh, I have Lost Tomorrows here. I thought I had Blind Vigil, but I've Lost Tomorrows. So this is the other book.
Yeah, this one.
It's a possibility, yeah, for his vision to come back medically and realistically, but I'm not sure about the time frame of doing it. And so when I'm writing this book about trying to write a book about a blind PI, I'm thinking, well, you did give yourself that out. The vision could have come back over the 9 months that between now and when he lost it. And I thought, well, that's a cop-out, and I can't do it. But I will tell you, and I mentioned this before, is that I was so unsure that I could carry the book written in first person about a private investigator who's vision impaired to make it compelling enough or interesting enough, because I'm not really big on scenery, but it is a part of everybody's book. It's a part of my book, my books. So you don't really have that. You have different senses you're trying to work with, and so I actually had a third person character who was the bad guy, a bad guy. In the third, maybe it was even the second chapter, I wrote him in where he's watching from outside. He's watching Rick and Moira McFarlane, who people have read, Moira's a PI that Rick teams up with sometimes. He's watching them. You don't know what he's doing, but you just know from some of his internals that he's not a very nice guy. He's done some bad things. And I liked the character, and it sort of helped carry the book because I did not have that confidence. But then the more I wrote him, the more I wrote forward, the less chapters of his I put in. So I finally, after about 100 pages, I stopped writing him. Mm-hmm. And then I went back and realized that, I just got into Rick mode. How would he deal with these things? And so I went back and pulled out I hope I still have them somewhere in a folder because I did like the character. But I realized I just have to write this as Rick. Rick has to be completely out of his head how he deals with this stuff. So, but it was a real challenge, probably the most challenging book. I say this for every book, but probably the most challenging book that I've written for sure.
Yeah, well, I would think so, just because it's a real change, and I think it was interesting to me reading it. It's still got your style and Rick's character, but to me it reads a little bit more like a straight thriller. In a sense, because I think because there's that immediate tension about him not seeing, and I wondered if you had thoughts about that as you were writing it, or maybe you came back to that, or
I didn't really think about that, but I think it's a good observation. I think I know where it comes from. Is that the whole, as people have followed Rick throughout his torturous life, before the major event in his life was when his wife was murdered before Yesterday's Echo. So that's always, and he was arrested for it, released, never tried, never exonerated. So that baggage is carried over, and the guilt he feels for what happened that night has carried over from book to book. Well, in Lost Tomorrows, he found out what happened to his wife. That's all I'll say. So that circle was closed in some ways, and even maybe some of his overall guilt he's always had is really that need for redemption. So I really was, aside from starting him without being able to see, he was in a completely different place than he's been in. I had that kind of a crutch, that backstory, that angsty backstory to lean on when I had to. So he's still clearly an angsty guy, but ironically, he's actually probably more emotionally together in this book than the other books, even though he's got this really big physical disability. So that was a different place for me to write. And this is not really in regards to writing a thriller, but he was also in a steady, healthy relationship. And that was a different thing for him and for me to write and for me to have in my life, because I don't know how that works. But he has to think about when he does something now, it doesn't just affect him, it affects his girlfriend, Leah. So it was really, the blind thing is the obvious reason why it was different and difficult, but really his life had changed a bit. He has changed a bit. He's kind of you're right, he's on sort of a new path now.
Yeah, no, I found that really interesting, and I thought you made a nice transition there, because it is the same Rick, but he felt that he was more, he has to be a little more dependent on people. He doesn't want to be. He doesn't want to be.
Right.
But he has to be, and that's an interesting dynamic he got going where
exactly.
Yeah. So that's great. Now, so did you do some particular research? I noticed there's someone in the book that you may have dedicated it to that you might have gotten some information from, but tell me a little bit about your research.
Right. Yeah. I was fortunate to have a woman in my writers group who had not fortunate to her friend, but who is vision impaired up in LA. She's probably around my age, possibly older, and she lost her vision when she was maybe in her 40s, which for what I was looking for was, good, because Rick is 40-ish when he loses his eyesight. And I did a lot of the writing of the first draft before I talked to anybody who was vision impaired. But then they sort of confirmed things for me. So I got some good information from her. Excuse me. And there's also, I live in Claremont. I live very near the Claremont Town Square or Town Center, whatever they call it. And there's a Vons over there that I can walk to. And I've always seen this young woman with a cane, a seeing eye cane or a white cane. And I thought, well, I'm writing this book now. It'd be great to pick her brain a little bit, but I can't really walk up to her and out of the dark say, hey, can you help me? Right. Creepy old man. But I saw her one day outside of Vons, and she was talking to one of the Vons employees because she knows the area quite well, but she'd never been to the Subway sandwich around the corner of the mall. And I was walking up right there, and I said, hey, I'll help you find it. And I don't know, it was daytime. Not that helps her, but it wasn't like, I was snooping around at night. And but she had to put her faith in me, and she did immediately. So I took her to lunch at Subway, and we had lunch, and we spent 3 or 4 hours together. And she's a remarkable young woman. Her name's Ariel Amavisca, and I did dedicate the book to her. When she lost her eyesight, she was in a car accident, and she also was in a coma for 8 days.
Oh my.
And she sort of had to rebuild her life, and she's quite remarkable and funny. But and I've also talked to her over the year and a half since I wrote the book, or 2 years, whatever, how long it's been. So she's quite helpful with that too. And I did buy a seeing eye cane, and I used it very little bit at night. And I walked around my house with my eyes closed, and you'd be surprised how easy it is for you to walk, a place you've been for a long time. You can kind of figure it out. I mean, you do it when you're sure, when you're at a certain age where occasionally you may have to get up in the middle of the night to use the restroom. And I'm sure you don't put your glasses on. You probably, especially because you're married, you don't want to wake your wife up. So, I mean, I can walk in my bathroom with my eyes closed. Anyway. Yeah. So, but the important thing I got from Ariel is that, because I have Rick in the beginning, he thinks about steps in his mind. He's completely walked the steps in his house, so he knows how to get anywhere from any place. He knows how many steps it is. And I asked her if that was something she did. She said, yeah, she did. So, and it's not a huge part of the book. I could have written it without it, but I thought it was an important part. I had to be very careful about not overworking it, and want to be borderline on that. But I was really glad I was able to keep that in, because it kind of works in the end too. By the way, yeah. Hi, Kathy, and wait until dark. See what?
Yeah, wait. Or yeah, dark.
Yeah. Right. Well,
it's, it all works. Right. Yeah, that was interesting. I thought you did a nice balancing of, information about how he has to deal with things without getting every detail.
Yeah.
I mean, because I think you're right. If every time he walks, you give the number of steps, it would get a little old. But
right.
But and also I think not to give anything away, I don't think I will here, but it does set up the kind of ending and the climax really well. Yeah.
I was glad to be able to use steps for that.
Yeah, it's there for a reason. So, what challenges did you run into? I mean, as you start writing it and you suddenly go, oh, I can't do that, or how am I going to do that instead? Or I would imagine those would kind of come up.
Right. Clearly it's the vision thing, and how believable can you make it? I mean, he's basically working with Moira in the book quite a bit, but there are some scenes. There's some scenes where he feels isolated when he's trying to help her, and he makes a bad decision by getting out of the car, not really knowing. Right. He knows where he is in terms of downtown La Jolla, near Muldoon's, but he doesn't know the exact, steps and everything. And so I had to kind of deal with trying to write in that isolate. One thing I didn't want to do was make Rick a victim because he's vision impaired. Because I clearly have a lot of respect for vision impaired people, and then I would imagine very few that have been blind for a while consider themselves victims. I didn't want him to be, this is how it is, but Rick is kind of messed up, as we know. I mean, internally, he's got his own issues. So I just took him. I mean, this guy with this particular personality, vision impaired, and how would he deal with it? And so, he internalizes it a bit, and maybe, there's a fine line in that too, of how much he internalized what he has to go through. That was definitely something I had to think about too, not just, his surroundings, but how much is he internalize the things he has to do now where he didn't have to do before. And then, of course, which is something that's true, is that your other senses get stronger. Although I did find out that has much bigger impact when you're younger if you lose your eyesight, and you can really rely on your other senses. But I think I was close enough to having it be true, and so he relies in this book on his nose quite a bit. But also he makes mistakes sometimes too, which I liked, because Rick has never been a Superman. He's not Sherlock Holmes. He's not Joe Pike. But he's got some gut instincts, and he's right most of the time. But when he's wrong, it's usually a bad result. But so I wanted to have him. I didn't want all these new senses to work perfectly all the time. Although I guess you got the scent basically right in one degree. But anyway.
Yeah. And that's the other thing that's an interesting thing you put in there is he smells.
Right.
This smell that he picks up is an important clue, and it's kind of, that's what he follows in a sense.
Right.
It becomes part of the thing.
Yeah, and his hearing a little bit too.
Did you practice like covering your eyes and see what things smelled like, or listening?
I consider myself a good cook, and I consider myself a foodie, but I think my smell is pretty good, but it is really hard to describe smell sometimes. Mm-hmm. And I was trying to figure out how to describe what Dove from men smells like, and I really did not have a good. I had something for a while that I was using, chalky metallic or something like that. I think I just eventually chickened out and just went with Dove. I mean, anybody who flies to fly, when we used to fly in airplanes, I always get the little 2 ounce or whatever it is.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so, and it's pretty strong. It's pretty strong when you put it on. You can smell it. So I actually consulted. Not consulted. There's another author. I'm blanking on her name right now, but she has acknowledgments, who writes about scent. She writes about perfume and mysteries. Okay. And I asked her a bunch of stuff, like, what is it? Because I guess like women's fragrances, I can like a smell, but I can't describe it. So I had to get a lot of information from her. And it was interesting to find out what's in perfume and things like that. But I didn't know that a whole lot, but it was, sometimes you want to get that detail right, and you spend way too much time on it.
Yeah. There's actually a really cool book. This is just a little aside I think it's called The King of Scent. And it's this guy who has this amazing nose. And he figured out what some of the perfumes were from Paris, and they protect those. And he figured them out just by smelling them.
Oh,
they got really freaked out when he started publishing these things. So it's an interesting book. Yeah. So let me go back. You got some of your characters, of course, coming back. Most kind of centrally is Moira is back. Yeah. And I think, she's got that interesting relationship with Rick where he just drives her crazy and she just says no more. And then of course she always ends up coming back. Did that change slightly because of his condition in this book?
Yeah, it does for her, although she gets to her limit. But she does. He notices it actually early in the book. He feels like she's still giving him a hard time, but he almost, instead of derision, which is perfectly fine accepting, he feels, is there pity? Is there pity in there with this derision? It's not as hard as it used to be. She should still be as hard on me. But they have an interesting dynamic. I always thought of her as an older sister, and I think I put it in a book, maybe not this book, is where she just feels responsible for this guy, and she really can't. They've just been brought together over the years under circumstances, and they've been in some really tight circumstances, and they have a friendship, but it's a very antagonistic friendship. And to me, it's like a younger brother, older sister type thing, maybe. And she's also the calming influence on Rick, where he goes with his gut, and she thinks things out more. And plus she's a better investigator, and he knows that than he is. But when he thinks he's right, he jumps in, and that really bothers her. And he gets on a quest where, this is it. This is what we have to do. And she's like, this hasn't always worked out for you, you dumbass.
Yeah, you might want to think that over.
Yeah, right. You might want to think that over. You can't really.
Right. No, and I think that's always the ones where the book she's been in. That's always been an interesting tension and helps us get what Rick's about, which is not always exactly all together. The other,
I just ramble on. What's funny about her too is that when I started writing Rick 19 years ago, or 20 maybe, 19, I didn't want him to have any kind of partner. I didn't want him to have the Superman sidekick guy. I didn't want him to have the smarter PI. I just wanted him to be isolated and have to deal with his own mistakes, which he clearly does a lot. But then I had to have her in the second book for a small scene where he ends up getting a case she was working on, not his fault, but she's pissed. And then they have this dynamic. I go, well, it's kind of interesting. I kept her in the book a little bit. Then I had her a little bit in the next book. And then in the fourth book, Blood Truth, I was going to have her in for just a scene. And I put her in the scene and she started talking. She and Rick started talking. And she became a huge part of the book. And she's been a big part of every book since then, except for the last one, but she has an important part, but she's not with Rick. But it's just funny how things evolve. And you write a series too. I'm sure, and I'm guessing, I think we've talked about it before. You and I are not that, we're kind of similar in the way we go at it. And it's something, so what? Rick was never going to have somebody he worked with. Well, now he does. And it rounds him out a little bit and makes him maybe more of a believable character. It's just funny how things happen and you just got to go with it if it makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's true. And then the other character you've brought back for this book is Turk Muldoon.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about Turk and remind us about who Turk is.
Yeah, Turk Muldoon is he owns Muldoon Steakhouse in La Jolla, and Rick had worked there in like middle school or high school in the summers after his dad got kicked off the force. Couldn't hold a job. Rick had to help out with the finances for the family. So he got a job there, and Turk took him under his wing, showed him the restaurant biz, and he showed him how to be a man. Be a bit, more of a man. Rick was 14 when he started there, and Turk was like 17, showed him the ropes a little bit. And they had a friendship, and they both ended up playing football at UCLA together only 1 year. And then when Rick shit hits the fan before yesterday's Echo, Rick has to come back to San Diego, where he's not a cop anymore. He needs a job, and he ends up working in the restaurant. Eventually becomes kind of part owner in the restaurant with Turk, and that goes to shit in yesterday's Echo. And they haven't really made up, but Turk still lets Rick use his a booth in the restaurant as an office because Rick doesn't have an office. So if he needs to meet a client and he wants to meet him somewhere, there's a booth open, Rick can have it, and he talks to his clients that way. But and as the book opens, Moira asks Rick to help out with a case she's taking for Turk. It's what they call a domestic case where Turk wants Moira to follow his girlfriend. And Moira has had a really bad situation with one of these domestics before, very recently. And she just wants Rick to come in and listen when they talk and see if she can sense something in Turk's voice. She's being honest with her. Is there something, how does he sound right? And what's for Rick, Turk was always kind of a, have what may, laissez-faire guy. He's had plenty of relationships, a good guy, but if most relationships last a year max, it was over, blah, blah, blah. He moved on to the next one. Hail fellow well met is basically, even the woman who he broke up with liked him. So, but in this, right. Rick's thinking, well, he's actually in a relationship where it matters for him that much. I don't necessarily approve of him hiring us to look after his girlfriend, but if he's this invested, something's changed and she's important to him. And is this the guy I used to know? That kind of comes up too as things evolve. Is this really did I ever know him, or is he the guy I used to know, or is he still my brother? Is he the guy who took me under his wing, and is he still my brother? So he has it all going throughout the book. So the book is a little bit about family in some ways, and Rick's fractured family.
Yeah, and his extended family. A lot of it's about kind of his extended family. Yeah, and Turk. He kind of has some of the same problems that Rick has in terms of no, this is the way it is. It's a little more negative in a way, but it's like, no, this is my deal, and that's just the way I think, and too bad.
Right. It was a challenge. He's had some cameos in the book since the first one, where he had a major part in yesterday's Echo.
Yeah.
But he's a different Turk than when I first started writing him because of this relationship. And so I did make him, that was a conscious thing I had to worry about, is he likable enough? He's in a very stressful situation very soon in the book. And am I making him too negative? Is he still likable? So that was a delicate balance I had to walk. But yeah, and plus, when he's dealing with Rick, it's like once again, Rick's a little brother. I guess Rick's everybody's little brother. But they know each other in some ways deeply. But Rick's questioning how he knows him now. But Turk also knows. I know how your brain works, and you're gonna F things up.
I mean, in a sense, that they understand each other even though they don't understand each other. Yeah, because they have similar issues. Okay. I see we got some questions coming in. I'm going to ask you one more and then get to this. The other thing that I thought was interesting and made this a little different was this book, a little different than some of the others, was the kind of geographic area you covered, with one exception, was pretty small. A lot of this happens, on Prospect Street, La Valencia, a house in La Jolla that wouldn't be that far away. In my head, I think I had it near the high school. And was that a conscious decision? Did that just kind of develop as you were going, or what happened there?
I probably think less about scene than a lot of sense of place than maybe a lot of authors do. But also that's something I have to be concerned about, because you don't want it to be too claustrophobic. But I had Rick being, if he's vision impaired, I thought if I take him to a new place and he's alone, how am I going to describe it? But I did ship him off to Idaho near the end of the book. But he was with Moira, and it was like a 24-hour trip. I did not go to Idaho. I've never been there. I didn't go there. But I talked to some friends I went to high school with, and brother of a friend I went to high school with, and I got some great info from people that live there. And it's funny because it is very consolidated where he's traveling. But the Idaho scene was my favorite. The scenes were my favorite to write. There's some characters that came out of nowhere that I really just love to write. One of them being the Private Eye, the old cranky Private Eye.
Oh yeah, he's great.
Idaho Falls. Yeah, of course I can't think of his name, but
I can't remember who either. But yeah, that was a great little character. Yeah. Okay, let me see what kind of questions we got going here. I think we're going here. Let's see. We have first question. What were your biggest challenges in writing how other characters who existed from previous books interacted with the new Rick? In other words, the blind Rick.
Yeah, it's a good question, and you touched upon it too. And I didn't elaborate that much earlier. Is where Rick has to ask for help. He has to, ask a little bit for help, but he has to accept help. So that's a whole new dynamic for him. He has to. Moira's trying to be helpful, and his girlfriend's very worried about the actions he takes. And everybody looks at him a little differently, and he does. And once again, I'm saying this is one kind of screwed up guy, the way he looks at things, and he does think, I'm not a victim. I don't want people to look at me as a victim because I'm blind. But like I said, I don't think most blind people feel that way. But yes, there's a little bit of that. Yeah, and plus, I hadn't written deeply into Turk for a long time, so that was something I had to do, which was a bit of a challenge. And I brought back a lawyer, Elk Fenton, who was in the first book, and their dynamic, and they'd had a relationship that wasn't in the books over the years. So they actually kind of had a solid relationship, and of course, what happens when Rick gets in a good relationship.
Right.
It was challenging, and it's always fun to bring back some of the old characters and to give them not just to have them as like you're watching a series on TV or something, and the special guest, they have somebody just like walk through. It's nice to have them have a point in being in the books.
Yeah, no, that's important. Let's see. Next question. What was the most challenging part of writing this book, and which part brought you the most joy? I think we have a special answer here.
It's called Blind Vigil. So that was the hardest part, as I mentioned earlier. Yeah, that was. But beyond that, as I touched on also, is that Rick and a whole new deal. Once I figured out how I was going to handle Rick, vision impaired, and kind of how I was going to work my way through that, the whole new reality of him being in a better place. And I mean, it's a lighter book, ironically, than probably in terms of his internals than the other books I've written. So that was actually, it's a challenge for me to write somebody who's in kind of a good place.
Yeah. I mean, that's actually interesting. It's now that you've said it, there is less kind of that, internal. I mean, there's some, but it's less of a thing. Maybe because it's balanced out by the fact that he's blind, and you got to spend half your time figuring out how to get somewhere or do something. Maybe it makes a difference.
Yeah, the book I just turned in, I carried it forward. I mean, you're supposed to have your characters evolve, and Rick's been a little bit like a roller coaster in some ways. And I think that he has moved past that really horrible angst that he's had. But so I think I'm being tougher on him physically now, since I'm not as being tough emotionally.
Yeah, well, you're pretty tough. You are very tough on physically at one point in this book, and I won't mention that, but it's rough. It is rough.
Yeah.
Let me see. Oh, next question. And you may have an answer or not. How many books will be in the series?
Well, I do know. I do know there'll be at least 10. Okay. I just turned in 8, and I posted on Facebook a week or so ago that I had a big surprise or big announcement to make soon.
Yes, we've all been waiting anxiously.
People are going like, movie deal, series, blah, blah. I'm thinking, I don't think this is going to be such a big deal. I maybe shouldn't have put it up as a cliffhanger. But no, I just signed it. I'm going to sign the contract tomorrow. I just got it today. I've read it. I'm going to sign it maybe when I'm done here. So I'm going to do another 2 books.
Okay, great.
So at least 10. I'll just say at least 10 in the Rick the Rick family. Not sure exactly what I'm going to do in 9 and 10 yet. I'm sure my publisher will be happy to hear that as I sign the contract. But
yeah, have you ever thought about spinning off Moira?
I thought about that actually. Or giving her, maybe not spinning her off, but maybe giving her a bigger role, and maybe doing like a Robert Crace third person Moira, first person Rick or something. But not sure. Yeah, I really don't. Honestly, I thought I was going to be writing something different for the next book after the one I just turned in. But my agent and I and the publisher really wanted some more books. So my agent and I talked about what we're trying to do, and we thought it would be best. And I love writing Rick. And I love my publisher. They're fantastic. Ocean View. They're great people. They do a really good job. So we're going to do 2 more.
Yeah.
I can't imagine not writing Rick.
Yeah. It's never a bad thing when they want more books.
Yeah.
Much better than the other side of that.
Right.
Next question. How has 2020 affected the books you're currently working on?
Yeah, it's a funny thing. I was on a panel with some guy named Michael Connolly over the summer, and he was talking about how he was incorporating it, and Naomi Hirahara was our moderator, and we were all like, what do we do? Should we put it in? Should we not put it in? I write forward, so I try to write to the time period when the book comes out, more within a couple months. So I thought, when I started writing Blind Vigil, it wasn't going on. It was over a year ago. And so when I started writing the next book that I just turned in, which is called Last Redemption, I thought, well, this should be done. First of all, I didn't think I'd be doing this virtually. Back in February, I thought I had friends that had books coming out. I thought, God, I feel bad for them. I think I'll be doing this next December. Anyway, in the book I just turned in, I mentioned it once, but I'm not really, I'm not getting into it. There's no mask and stuff like that. And, but I started to think that, well, shit, we might be wearing masks for another 5 years. And,
yeah, it's possible.
This is true suspension of disbelief. There's no mask. But I try to, some people, if I had a really good reason to expound on it, then I would write about it. But I'm just trying to get through it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to assume most of the time in the future we're not going to be wearing masks, but who knows?
That's the hope.
Yeah, that's the hope.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. We got another question here. Why did you choose La Jolla as a setting?
Well, because I'm wealthy.
Exactly.
Well, I did. I grew up in La Jolla. I grew up in the tract home section of La Jolla, and
Yep.
beyond that, I liked the idea of having the juxtaposition of. I mean, La Jolla is a people from all over the world know La Jolla. A lot of them, rich people wealthy people have second homes in La Jolla, or maybe third homes. So it has some cachet, and I know it well, even though I don't live in La Jolla, I live in Claremont. But I like the idea of, I always think of Blue Velvet.
Oh, yeah.
The opening scene where you got the grass, beautiful manicured lawn, and then down below you see the beetles, the teeming beetles. And I just like that idea of paradise on top and then like a dark underneath. And so, I mean, La Jolla is a pretty nice place to drive around when you're looking for settings.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but yeah, I try to find an iconic spot in each book in San Diego, Greater San Diego, to have some important scene. But of course, in this book, I really didn't really. Well, it said La Valencia, which is La Jolla.
Yeah, I was going to say you did have the La Valencia, which of course is on the cover, which I thought worked well. And I had fun reading it because I've actually been working on a historical book, and I have a La Valencia in it, so it was nice to read somebody else talking about it. Next question: who's your favorite secondary character to write?
Moira. Yeah. Although I will say that my favorite character to write in this book was the I can't think of his name. The PI in
Idaho.
Idaho Falls.
Yeah, we got to look that up, because
basically in one scene, and I always think if you're a Seinfeld fan, that where his personality came from was the guy who parked cars. Can't remember his name. Who parked cars, and George ends up taking over his
spot.
Moves cars in the streets, because you can't park for a certain amount of hours in New York. So the car moved. Sid's his name, and I just thought of that attitude, like very just abrupt, gruff guy, and I stuck him in this character. And I started writing the character. I go, shit, man, I wouldn't mind bringing that guy back in some way in some book. I just felt really
he was a lot of fun, and it was kind of a nice spot to have him appear. You've kind of arced to a certain point, and there's this little dip before we get into the big end, and it was almost like a kind of comic relief there. I mean, it's not funny, but
very important information comes from it, but it is sort of comic relief. And I didn't think about the comic relief when I was starting to write the character. I thought, well, this is the guy.
Yeah, and that helps it not feel like you're just feeding us the info. Yeah. So I thought that worked really well. Any more questions? I think I don't see any, but if anybody's got some, we'll certainly be willing to take them. We have a little time here.
I got a question for you. So how is the historical book coming?
I finished the second draft just before Christmas. It was a desperate time for 2 weeks over Christmas because of some things that were messed up in it. You know how that second draft is.
Yeah.
Oh wait. And then I got this one thing, and now I'm banging away every day. So I'm feeling pretty good about it.
This is a generational La Jolla book.
Yeah, and this first one's in the 1950s.
Yeah.
A family, two guys, one girl, and a mother who their dad was a cop, but he disappeared. So, so it's going to follow them over. Each book will have the different child will be the central character, though all the other ones will be in it. So
you read Ken Copeland?
Yes, I have read not all of his books, but several of them. Yeah. He's got that great generational.
He does the hard way though. He jumps around.
Yeah, he does. He jumps back to this era and back to that era.
I can't wait to read that one. That sounds like a great idea to me.
Yeah, my greatest accomplishment so far in the book is getting 4 La Jolla writers together at the La Valencia. I get Raymond Chandler, Dr. Seuss, Neil Morgan, who people may not remember, and then Max Miller, who wrote Cover the Waterfront. And they were all living in La Jolla in the 50s.
Right.
So,
and Chandler used to go to the Whaling Bar.
Yeah, so that's where they all meet. They're all meeting up at the Whaling Bar. So
which is
So
no
that was-
longer there.
Yeah, which is not the Whaling Bar anymore. So that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun.
Cool. Wow.
Any hints or thoughts about what's coming? You know, I assume you're working on the next one.
Well, yeah, the one I turned in, you just sent me the contract. It's Rick's in when I started writing Rick all these years ago, I wanted, like I said, I want him to be a lone wolf, but he's not that much anymore. But I also wanted every decision that he made have consequences if they're bad decisions, or if the actions had bad consequences, reverberations. And that physically, that comes to the forefront in this book. And it's like all the physical abuse he's taken over the years has had an impact, and that he has to deal with. And story-wise, Moira is quite involved. I'll just say, on a writing thing, people ask me, you know, how that book comes together and everything. For me, it always starts with Rick's subplot. The major subplot for Rick, and I didn't really realize this the way I write, but I finally started thinking about it, and that's what always comes first. His subplot, what's he have to deal with? How's it going to affect what the actions he has to take in the book relating to cases he takes? And that's always the easy part for me is the subplot. There's always great consequence to it, but the actual through line story is the difficult part. And this one came to me. It was a hard book to write again. They're always hard to write. But the sub. I mean, it changes. I made some real drastic changes to what I thought I was going to do initially. But yeah, well, it's called Last Redemption, so you know.
Ah, okay. Well, that should sum it up. Of course, but if it's the Last Redemption, he's got 2 books to go after that. So.
Well, you know, Harry Bosch. You know.
There you go.
He's got. He'll actually. Midnight will start solving crimes. His dog.
Go. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Time back. Speaking of that, someone's asked, how's Angus? Is Rick going to get a dog? But I think we answered that question. Rick does have a dog.
Rick has a dog.
Yeah.
Angus is lying on the couch right now, sleeping. Yes, Rick has a dog's important to him. His dog, Midnight's Black Lab, and there's the one being that always, as a dog is, always happy to see him. When Rick's had a bad day, made bad decisions, having a hard time dealing with his own depression, dealing with himself, there's Midnight.
Yeah, that was another little detail bit that I enjoyed in the book. Is, again, without giving anything away, the lengths that Rick goes to protect Midnight.
Right.
Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I had one. I don't remember what book it was. You know, I read my reviews on Goodreads and stuff. But somebody really had a problem. They said he doesn't treat his dog very well. I'm thinking, what? Because she leaves him alone a lot. I mean, well, you know, he got to solve crimes in some ways.
Yeah, right.
Get in trouble. But Pam up in Seattle, it's just in before times I'd have asked when Matt will come to Seattle. Maybe, you know, I screwed up, Pam, as you know, when I went to Third Place Books, and because you're such an Oregon fan, and all your pictures on Facebook and stuff have you wearing a Duck jersey or something, or it used to be at least. I always thought you lived in Oregon. Then I thought, oh no. You got mad at me, and somebody else got mad at me because I would have loved you guys to come the one time I went to Seattle. Of course, now we don't go anywhere.
No, none of us go anywhere. Let's see. I'm trying to look at the comments, see if there's anything there. Any other questions anybody's got about the new book, the old books, when the paperback's coming out? No, not. That's never the question. We never want to ask that.
6 months, probably.
6 months?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Is this book, one other thing, is this book shorter than most of your books? Or
That's a good question. You know, I've always written, my first drafts are always about 100,000 words, and except I had one really long one. But the book usually comes in around like 93,000. And the last two, the one I turned in, were under 90,000. So yes, it is shorter.
Okay.
Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe I'm getting a little more decisive or something. But the first drafts are still a mess and really long. So but it's amazing how much you can chop out when you're rolling along.
Yeah, it was very efficient, and I admired that.
Thanks.
And maybe that's part of why I was talking about the thriller thing earlier. It really zipped along.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Pam says he's a Charger fan now, which is bizarre to me.
Well, why would
I know why. I know why. Herbert,
of
course.
Oh, Herbert. Okay.
Right.
All right. That explains it. All right.
And I see
one more
we
question.
have one more question. Someone's asking if we've got signed books, and we do. So if you click the buy signed book link, there are signed books available, and you can actually get personalized books as well.
If you want to personalize.
Sorry, so bad. I was captured by a fuzzy cat bookseller who wanted to.
Very nice.
But if we don't have any more questions, I think then that is it for us tonight. So I want to give a huge shout out to Corey as well as to Matt for joining us tonight. Thank you so very, very much. And also congratulations on the new book, and also congratulations on 10 plus books in the series. That's amazing.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, thanks, Corey, for doing this, taking his valuable time, and especially when you should be writing. And thanks, Constance, for putting this together. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it was great. Thanks all for coming.
Constance is frozen.
Constance is frozen. I don't know if we can do anything at this point. We can dance.
I don't know if we're done or not.
Yeah, I don't know either.
All right.
All right. I guess we're done.
Hey, talking about yourself, so Lori's still listening. No, thanks a lot, Corey. And congrats on I can't remember the last time I talked to you, but to be going through your second draft, it seems to me like you made a hell of a lot of progress since the last time we talked.
I have. Well, a lot of time on my hands.
Yeah.
So that helped, and just focus. But I think I'm starting to feel, first draft you always feel hopeful and excited because you got ideas. Second draft, what's going on? And I definitely had a couple of weeks ago. I have no idea how I'm going to solve all this, but a couple of things. You know how it is. You get a couple of ideas, and suddenly you go, yes, that. And then all this changes.
Right. So, and all that shit.
Get rid of that crap and bring in this.
Right. Yeah. So, you gotta go with what's worked.
Yeah. Right.
All right, man. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Sorry for really hostage, guys. The internet is yield internet, but I will log us all off now.
Okay.
Have a lovely evening, everyone.
Thanks a lot for doing it.
Thanks for coming.
Take care.